Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Infuse Your Future podcast, where we bring together people and ideas who are making the world a better place. Today's guest is Alecia Jacobson. She's a health and life coach. She's a podcaster, has a great podcast called Spirit of a Badass Podcast, and she's a speaker. And today she's going to talk to us about time and stress management, which we can all use. So without further ado, hi, Alecia.
Hi, thank you.
So welcome, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you infuse the future?
Yeah, so I am first and foremost a mom. We have 6 children combined. So we are a blended family. My husband had 2, I had 2, and then we had 2. So if anybody understands time and stress management, it is me, if even by default. So we have a big family and lots of moving parts with that. I kind of fell into this coaching and health coaching because I had a gym. I owned a gym that I just stopped working in, sold last June. So June of 2023. And I had that for just about, I think, 11 years or so. So I worked a lot with women around, health and fitness. And then what I realized was, in addition to, exercising and building muscles and habits around the gym, most of what they were needing was things around mindset and inner shifts and things around stress management, time, all sorts of things like that. So after a while, it was in 2018, I went to the UW-Madison and got a certification in professional coaching. So I paired that with personal training and group work. And then I just kind of gradually was like feeling pulled towards coaching. And then after I was kind of exiting the gym world is when I started my podcast and was I tried to focus on speaking in January of 2020. And then we all know what happened then. So public speaking was like, I had to teach all these children at home. So it was not conducive to being in any way speaking. So then my podcast got put on hold, but yeah, so that's how I sort of fell into where I'm at.
That sounds like a great journey.
It is.
And for sure, with 6 kids, you have definitely got to be an expert at time and stress management. So Totally. What can you tell us today about time and stress management?
Yeah, so I have kind of 3 things that I thought we could talk about. The first thing has worked really well in my family and works really well with every single client that I've worked with that has kind of infused that into their life, and that is family meetings. And what that looks like is you pick a time within your week that works well for you and your partner, or and if you have kids, you can bring the kids on. I do suggest waiting to bring the kids on, usually until you and your partner, if you have one, have sort of ironed out how you want it to flow. But when you do this, it sets you up for success for the upcoming week. It gives you an opportunity to ask for your needs to be met, to ask for any help that you would need, anything that's maybe really important to you that you have coming up in the week, like podcast recordings, or if there's an important anniversary, or just anything that is maybe out of the ordinary, all the way down to what you're having for dinner. Having these weekly meetings is a really helpful tool to kind of eliminate the stress and the kind of that back and forth bickering that you might have about, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't do this, or I'm taking on all the load. And it really sets you up for, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Could you support me with this? Or I have this really important meeting Thursday morning and it's early. Could you please take morning drop off and make sure that lunches are packed, because I'm going to be overloaded and it's really important I get a good night's sleep on Wednesday night. So, kind of setting yourself up for success that way.
That sounds like a good idea. Now, do you pair your meetings with something fun like a family game night, or is it just the meeting?
So my husband and I actually used to do it after church, because we would go to church and then we'd go to a coffee shop afterwards, because like the music, the energy would put us in this really good state. We kind of stopped going to church all the time, and we don't do that anymore. We still do it on Sunday mornings. And the reason we do it on Sunday mornings is because we are both morning people. We're refreshed after Saturday, and we're both able to meet each other in a way that is really supportive. And that is a good way to do it, because if your partner is not a morning person and you're like ready to go in the morning with this, it's not going to work. That's going to clash. So making sure when you design this meeting that it's at a time that you both are feeling optimal, which could be if you do like a game night or something like that. That might be really a great thing with kids to pair it that way. But just making sure that all people involved, it's like you are at like 80, 90% versus coming off a 3-day, 12-hour work shift and feeling completely like you have nothing to give, because then it might just be a little bit draining.
So true. So true. So number 1, family meetings.
Yes. Number 2 is routines. This is a big thing that I teach basically as a foundation, is setting up a routine for your life. And this means not just going on Instagram and following whatever the influencer is that says, oh, if you want to be healthy, do this, or if you want to be happy, do this. It means actually looking at the life that you have and who you actually are at your core, and then planning a routine around that. That looks like, if you are not a morning person, that you don't try to create a early morning routine for yourself, because likely it's just going to fail unless you've created all these other structures in place for it. So setting it up in a way that it works for all of your life and for who you are. A lot of times the routines that I work with people on are morning routines, and they say, I want to get up, I want to exercise, I want to take time for myself in the morning to do meditation, journaling, just to have quiet time before the crazy happens, and maybe get lunches packed, maybe do all the things that you need to do before the chaos begins of the day, when basically your day might not be yours, depending on, where you work and the things that happen in your day. And if they're struggling to do that, oftentimes it's because it's not their morning routine, it's their nighttime routine. And maybe they're scrolling on their phone before they go to bed. Maybe they're having alcohol. Alcohol's a big one. Any alcohol consumed before you go to bed can really disrupt your sleep. And maybe, they are eating too close to bedtime, or maybe reading the news, or things that are disruptive or stressful, and not getting to bed in time, which means maybe they're not able to get up and spend that time, gift themselves that time in the morning. So looking at what are the routines you want to create, what are the things that impact that routine, because it can save you time, it saves you stress, all the things it actually saves you. And then when you go and do it, just making sure that you start, just one step at a time. So just do one thing and practice that over and over and over. Because if you try to do a whole thing, generally that might not work the best either. So just one step, repeat, repeat, repeat.
So true. And as you continue to do the routine, you develop it. It becomes a habit, and becomes second nature.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. So how about number 3?
Number 3 would be the thoughts that you think. And this one, like if you've ever taken a shower before and you come out of the shower and you have had an entire argument with someone who you don't like, could be a boss, could be a family member, whatever it is, somebody on the internet, like if you've ever had a fight in the shower with somebody who is not with you in that shower, that is a perfect description of the thoughts that you think creating stress that doesn't need to happen. So managing your thoughts. And with this, it's even noticing that you've had a whole shower and had a whole argument, or a whole drive and had a whole argument, that you can really have an impact on your body, your stress level, by thinking different thoughts. And I like to kind of compare your mind to that of shopping with a toddler. Like the toddler is going to go, and it's your job to kind of wrangle them back in. So your mind's going to go, and it's your job to notice, oh, there goes the toddler, and pull them back in. So pull your mind back in. And then the other part is often people are like, well, it's true. They, this person, whatever it is. And then thinking, okay, what's also true? What's also true is this isn't helpful for you to be thinking this way. What are some things that would be helpful to start thinking about and really practice? Where are you feeling that stress in your body when you start having those stressful thoughts that you're creating in your mind, and then work on kind of calming that in your mind and then calming that in your body, so that, because that's just stress that you don't need. Like, we have enough stress. We don't need to go create more in our head and have that like thought spiral.
I had the perfect example of that this morning. I ran to Costco to get some stuff and got one of the great Costco chickens that they sell, and loaded up the back of my CRV. And I felt like I had the chicken in a nice, secure space. And if you've ever gotten a Costco chicken, it's full of juices. But if you drop it and it opens, it's going to be a mess. And I remember I stopped at the light and I heard something slide, and I just automatically assumed it was the chicken. And I'm thinking, I started getting really stressed out. I'm thinking, the chicken fell. I didn't secure it properly. It's going to be a massive mess all over my trunk. I started getting into this frustration with just life. Why did you make this happen? It's just one more thing on my plate I didn't need today. And then when I got to the second light and I started smelling the chicken, and I was like, that's just proof that it spilled. And then I got to the second light and I'm thinking, I have no idea if the chicken even spilled. And I'm going through this whole stressful scenario. If it did spill, there's nothing I can do about it till I get home. It's a mess. It's there. Worrying about it isn't going to help. And if it's not spilled, then it's even more ridiculous that I'm having this stressful conversation in my head. And I get home and it hadn't spilled at all. So I went through that 5 minutes of turmoil for nothing.
Huh?
But I love the fact that I was able to kind of get a hold of it within a few minutes and get back to reality and just enjoy the rest of my drive home.
Mm-hmm. And that takes practice. I mean, even noticing, you have to be able to have the awareness of what you're thinking to be able to notice, like, oh, I just spent 5 minutes worried about a problem that might not actually be a problem. So I'm going to choose to think, I can't do anything about it now. I'll wait and deal with it when I can.
Yeah, really true. I don't know if you've ever heard the term "be here now."
Oh, yeah.
I teach a great class called the Clarity Catalyst, which is an 8-week kind of emotional intelligence program. And that's one of the things that we talk about and teach is there's so many things we have on our plates, especially for moms. Our mind can just spiral out of control about future scenarios with our kids, with our spouses, with everything that's going on in the country. We can spiral out of control on what will happen if. And same way with the past. If we've been through struggles in the past, sometimes we get caught on that negative loop spiral. And then we talk about how don't live in either one. Plan for the future, work through the past in a very concerted effort, but live in the present. Otherwise, you're just stressed out all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true, because you can't do anything about, the past. Essentially, it's done. So worrying and stressing or ruminating is what, a lot of people do. That doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read a book recently, and I read a book. I don't actually. Every time I say I read it, I listen to it either on Audible or on TikTok. And it said, I don't remember who it was, but basically it was like, when we have the ability to choose our thoughts. So if you can choose what you think, why think negative thoughts when you could think good thoughts? You could think about possibility and, really grand things versus really horrible, things. And it's not to say there's not issues that we actually have to deal with and be very serious about, but on the spaces where we can, why not think the best outcome possible?
Yeah. And I love that. And you can train yourself to help your mind create a choice. And I know all these catchphrases are really easy to say, especially for people from a trauma background. they can really get caught into that negative loop cycle. But it's important to get out of it if you want to change the future. If you want to continue to live in the past and continue to go through those spirals in your head, it's important to learn how to get out of those spirals, whether you're working with a therapist or a coach, or just doing a lot of reading on your own and trying to get out of those spirals. Because with practice, we can change the thoughts in our head and create the life we want right now. It doesn't have to be in the future when we've created our perfect business or made our first $10 million.
Yeah. I mean, all we have is now. That sounds cliche and you've heard it, but it is be here now because it's all you have. Like plan, but yet show up now.
Right. So those are 3 great points: family meetings, routines, thoughts, the thoughts in your head. Any other tidbits about stress or time management that you can share?
Well, I really think, make sure that when you're considering reducing your stress, one, that you think, I can actually do this, because oftentimes people cling so much to the, it's outside my control. So actually think, I can get a grip on this. I can handle this. I can figure this out, and then start with it. But start small, because it does take time. We're so comfortable in the stressful situations often that it feels uncomfortable being out of the stressful situations, depending on, what it could be. But a lot of times, I see people, they kind of thrive in that chaos. And even though they say they don't want the chaos, they're comfortable. I know for me, I've really had to work hard to not add more to my plate, because I get real excited and it's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I start creating things and doing things, and then I am stressed. And I've had to work really hard to pause and wait and really see, is this in line? Is it going to take too much energy for, in the time that it's going to take me? If it's a 3-month window, 3 months from now, do I want to be doing this? And looking at, if it's going to be July, no, the answer is probably not, because I'm going to have my kids home and life is different then. So really, paying attention to, thinking that you can handle it, but then also looking at your own kind of personality with it, and just working with who you are, and not just kind of looking at what works for other people necessarily and working with that, because that can be a tricky thing to be in, because that's not you. So working with the core of who you are when you're trying to kind of tame the stress monster and, work on time management. Because if you do it in small steps, that's going to add up, and then you're going to have a big result. But just not, work with your expectations and work with who you are, truly who you are.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Now, do you personally coach people around time and stress management?
Oh, yes. That's one of my specialties.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to work with you, how are they going to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, AleciaJacobson.com, and then there is a button that you can book a Calendly time with me. It's free. We get really clear on, your goals, what you want, where you are now, what's not working, and then make a plan to get you going, in the direction that you want.
Now, what do you say to someone who's listening to this and they say, I can't put anything else on my plate. I cannot hire a coach. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I'm too stressed out. I don't need one more thing on my plate.
Yeah. Well, if that's what you're saying, you're probably right. And it won't happen because that's what you're saying. So that goes back to the belief of, well, what if I were to try something? What if? And, I just did a talk. It was called Breaking the Back Burner Cycle for a women's conference. And it was all about looking at the thoughts that you have, the kind of roles that we play, and the glorification of being busy, and this sort of badge of honor that we as women have, strapped on. Like, I'm so busy. I have all these, my plate is full and I can't take any more on. And maybe I can, if you want me to volunteer for something, because then I have another badge that I can, strap onto my chest here. And is that really what you want? Are you happy? Because if not, it might be time to examine your plate. Are you happy with what's on your plate? Does it bring you joy? Or are you exhausted? Are you worn down? Are you not able to actually live and experience a life that you love because your plate is full of trash and you don't like it? And maybe it's time to look at it and, examine. Does you like the Marie Kondo? Like, do that with what's on your plate. Does it spark joy? If not, let's work with it and see, maybe it's time to, learn some boundaries, say no, move things off your plate.
I was literally just going to say that a lot of times it's around boundaries, because I don't know about you, but I'm surrounded by people who think you have to be working 26 hours a day. And so it makes me look lazy, but I have to hold those boundaries and say, life wasn't meant to be working 26 hours a day, 8 days a week.
And lazy
you have
by
to be able to
what
breathe.
standards?
So to be able to hold that boundary, and I actually have a course that I teach on boundaries for people that aren't used to practicing them or, don't understand them. But I think that's one really important point, especially for women, especially in our culture. And it really goes back down to time and stress management, is having good, strong boundaries. Because for me, my other life involves being a doctor, and I work with someone who can see 50, 60 patients a day. And that's just not me. I just can't do that. And so a lot of times I feel like it looks like that I'm lazy because I'm only seeing 30 or 40 a day, but that's really a lot.
Yes.
And I keep trying to notch that number down. And many times I really do feel like I'm seen as the lazy person in the office, but I have to keep setting that boundary and remind myself, no, I'm on the right track trying to reduce the number so that I can be present with each person and be able to serve them better.
Yeah. And what serves them better is when you are a happy person who is not burnt out because you're seeing double the amount of patients you should in a day. And
right.
I work with a lot of people in that sort of arena where it's kind of measured on how many people you see back to back to back, as many as you can, like go, go, go. And yeah, when you start paring back, you probably are looked at like that. And does it matter? Like maybe, but can you work that, flex that muscle of, you know what, this is really important to me. This is important to me for my well-being. And I know that I will show up better when this happens. And unfortunately, it's just, we're just taught to be successful, to be enough. You have to measure up to these certain standards. And that measuring stick is outdated and needs to go.
It does. I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I love leaving people with a call to action, something that they can take with them today to reduce their time and stress right now, whether they have money or not, whether they think they have time or not. Do you have a call to action you can give to people?
Yeah, I would say the family meeting is by far the thing that I've used with my clients, that they have, when they have implemented it, they say, there's so much less stress in their house. There's so much less stress in their body. So by creating that family meeting, and you mentioned my podcast, Spirit of a Badass, I have a whole podcast that I did on the family meeting. So it's such a good tool. When you implement it, it makes everything in your life just work just a little bit better, which adds up to a lot less stress.
And I've listened to some of your Spirit of a Badass podcasts. It's a good podcast, so everybody should go listen.
Thank you. I love doing it.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Carla.